Working across cultures isn't just a skill for diplomats anymore. In our world, it's a reality for pretty much all of us. So we're going to dive into how you can master communication, no matter where your colleagues are dialing in from.
Have you ever had that feeling? You say one thing, they hear something totally different, and all of a sudden, a super simple project gets really complicated? Well, that's the cross-cultural communication gap, and we're going to learn exactly how to bridge it.
And believe me, this isn't just some abstract theoretical problem. Just look at the numbers. The U.S. does over $600 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars in trade every year with Canada, Mexico, and China each. Global business is here to stay, and knowing how to navigate it is absolutely crucial.
So yeah, we're all working in this global office, right? Whether your team is an ocean away or just across town, we're all connected. But this brings a really unique challenge with it. And here it is, the biggest trap you can fall into. Psychologists have a fancy term for it, projected cognitive similarity. But all it really means is that we tend to assume everyone shares our exact same way of thinking, our norms, our values. It's a totally natural assumption to make, but you know what? It's almost always wrong.
So how do we avoid that trap? Well, we need to develop a kind of superpower, and it's called cultural intelligence, or for short, CQ.
Okay, first things first, let's get on the same page about what culture even means. It's basically the shared values, the rules, the behaviors of any group of people. This could be a whole country, or it could be as small as the unique culture of your team at work.
And your cultural intelligence, your CQ, is simply your ability to work with and adapt to all those different cultures. Now here's the most important part, the big takeaway. CQ is not something you're born with, not at all. It is a skill, and it's one you can practice and get better at.
All right, so how do we start building that skill? We start with a map. Researchers have laid out some key cultural dimensions that help us make sense of the major communication differences around the world. Let's take a look at 3 of the really big ones.
First up, individualism versus collectivism. It's pretty much what it sounds like. Individualist cultures put a high value on independence and personal goals. You can think of it as the me perspective. On the flip side, collectivist cultures prioritize the group's goals and interdependence. That's the we perspective.
And you can really see this spectrum play out when you look at the data. You've got countries like the United States and the Netherlands way over on the individualist side. Then you have countries like China and South Korea, which are much more collectivist in their orientation.
So, why does this matter? Well, it totally changes how you communicate. In an individualist culture, you'd probably talk about personal achievements and rewards. But in the collectivist one, it's all about celebrating the group's success. It even affects things like how much people socialize outside of work.
Okay, let's add another layer to our map, egalitarianism versus hierarchy. This one is all about power. Is power something that's shared pretty evenly, where status differences are played down? Or is it concentrated right at the top, with really clear lines of authority?
And again, this chart shows a really clear spectrum. The Netherlands, for example, is highly egalitarian. That means you'll find flatter organizations and more shared decision-making. But South Korea is way over on the hierarchical side, with a deep, ingrained respect for formal authority.
And that has a huge impact on how you talk to people at work. In an egalitarian culture, a junior employee might openly disagree with their boss in a meeting. But in a highly hierarchical culture, that would be really, really unusual. You might even need to go through someone else to talk to a leader.
Our third and final dimension is called performance orientation. This is all about how much a culture encourages and rewards things like innovation, high standards, and just plain getting things done. It's the focus on results.
And this chart shows another pretty fascinating range. You've got Switzerland and the United States way up on the high-performance end. But then you have cultures like Italy and Mexico, which tend to place a lower emphasis on it, often prioritizing relationships over pure results.
So what does this mean for you, day to day? Well, in a high-performance culture, direct, blunt feedback is seen as a gift. It's essential for improvement. But in a low-performance culture, that same feedback can feel harsh or judgmental. Deadlines are seen as urgent in one, while the other might have a much more relaxed view of time.
Okay, so we have our map. But a map is totally useless if you don't know how to actually use it to get somewhere, right? So how do we turn all this knowledge into real, effective action?
It boils down to a pretty simple 3-step guide. First, focus on establishing trust and showing real empathy. Second, and this is huge, adopt a learner mindset.
Be curious, not a judger. And third, you have to consciously build a co-culture with your team, a new set of rules that works for everybody involved.
And don't forget, culture isn't just about what we say, it's also about what we do. On the left here, you can see just how much the pace of life varies. Super fast in a place like Germany, much slower in Mexico. And on the right, check out personal space. There's a whole foot of difference between what feels comfortable in Saudi Arabia versus Austria. Wild, right?
Now, we've arrived at what is probably the single most important point of this entire explainer. These frameworks are incredibly powerful, but they come with a massive warning label.
This chart says it all. Yes, on average, China is more collectivist than the USA. That's true. But just look at the massive overlap in the middle. There are tons of highly individualistic people in China and tons of highly collectivistic people in the USA. An individual person is never the national average.
So here's the bottom line, the thing you have to remember. Use these dimensions as your starting point, as a map to help you understand the general landscape. But never ever use them as a box to put an individual person in. True cultural intelligence is about seeing the person, not the stereotype.
So, I'll leave you with this question, this challenge. Your journey to a higher CQ, it all starts with simple curiosity. So who can you talk to this week to learn just one new thing about their unique cultural perspective?